Do you think being a king or queen in the Middle Ages was amazing? Maybe you think so, right? But it was not like that. Let's look together at what being a king was like. Then I will show you what being a queen was like too. On a normal morning, you were not awake yet, but your room was already being prepared. The servants got your towels and warm water ready. When the room became warm, it was finally time to wake you up. Do not worry, you did not sleep with a crown on your head. Someone shaking with fear had to wake you up. You could wake up whenever you wanted. The servants brought warm water to your room so you could wash your hands, feet, face, and the rest of your body because you did not have your own shower or bath. As a religious person, or to look good in front of the church, you had to pray in the morning. In fact, you prayed 3 to 4 times a day, and someone had to watch you while you prayed. Your breakfast was not amazing. You had a little fruit, a little cheese, and maybe beer or wine. After that, you had to meet with the council to talk about big problems of the country, like where to attack or who to fight. Not all kings were lucky. Many kings were in the battlefield, and many of them died very young. The kings who stayed in the castle watched the soldiers train. A king had to look strong and walk among the soldiers to show his power. Some kings went hunting to prove themselves or just for fun. Others stayed in the castle, ordered painters to paint their faces, and took part in different entertainments. If you were a king, you had to join big courts, important trials, and critical decisions. A king's life was full of fear and mistrust. There was always a threat called the church around you. In some periods, the church was more powerful than you. When you prepared for war, you wore heavy and thick armor, but sadly it did not save you most of the time. Your treasury was usually empty without successful wars, and an empty treasury meant the church could take your crown. At night in your bed, a soldier or spy who received a good bribe could kill you. Someone might put poison in your drink, or when you went hunting, an arrow from nowhere could hit you. This was the price of being a king and living in paranoia. Even in the toilet, you could be scared. Taking a bath made your fear even stronger because someone could kill you when you were most vulnerable. Your soldiers could start a rebellion, your castle could be attacked, and you could lose your kingdom. There was no privacy in the castle. When you talked about important things, someone could stand behind the door and listen, and this could lead to your destruction. If a king got the crown as a child, he was not the real decision maker. A regent or his mother did everything behind the scenes. The child only wore nice clothes and walked in front of people. Everyone tried to control his mind because he became more dangerous as he grew older. Some kings never truly grew up. They always remained golden dolls. Being a king did not always mean having full power. A group of advisors, army commanders, or powerful priests had more influence than the king. You decided things only on paper. If a war commander or a high-ranking officer disagreed with you, one morning you might wake up with a knife, or you might never wake up at all. If you were a king, you probably had a personal painter who had to paint you beautiful, strong, and great. These paintings were placed on church walls, big halls, and even on coins. Because if you did not have a grand image, it meant you did not have real power. If you had children, it did not mean having a warm and loving family. Each child was a political piece. Your daughter had to marry the king of another country to keep peace. Your son was trained for war or rule from childhood. None of these children were really children. From the beginning, they had to act. When the king got sick, nobody dared to say anything, because if the enemy knew, they would attack. People around the king hid his illness. Even if the king was in terrible pain, He had to be seen standing. Many times when a king died, no one knew for a few days because a new heir had to be chosen first so the kingdom would not fall. Most of the time, you did not choose your marriage. You had to accept certain marriages, even very young girls, to keep good relations with other countries. Your biggest problem was who would take the throne after you. You had to have a son, and one son was not enough. This is why kings always look for new maids, new women, and new queens. When an heir was chosen, everything slowly started to be prepared for the transfer of power. Now let's look at the story from the queen's point of view. Being a queen was also very hard. To become a queen, you had to marry a king and start preparing for this role from a very young age. You had to wear tight and heavy clothes, so tight that they could even hurt your ribs. At that time, there was no Botox, Photoshop, or filters. You had to be naturally beautiful, and people sacrificed their health just to look beautiful. When you became the king's wife, it was very unlikely that you were his only wife. Your rivals might even kill the newborn baby you had just given birth to. There are real examples of this in Ottoman history. Not every baby was meant to reach the throne. Your rival could bribe your servants to poison you, stab you, or suffocate you. Even your mother-in-law could be dangerous and work with others to push you away from the throne. If someone accused you of something, your whole life was hanging by a thread. You always lived under the shadow of the queen mother or the king's former wife, the previous queen. With just one word from her, you could be sent out of the palace, and that meant the end of your life. Even if you gave birth to 10 daughters, your future was still in danger as long as another wife of the king might give birth to a son. Your main duty was to have children, preferably a boy, and because childbirth had a high risk of death, your life was always in danger. Giving birth could be a cruel and painful experience, with servants, priests, and sometimes the king watching only because he wanted an heir. The king's death was a huge crisis for you, because in most countries, except England and some Scandinavian kingdoms, a queen could not stay on the throne alone.